Southeast Asia's QSR market could reach $91 billion by 2028, sharpening focus on frontline execution and store consistency. Mark Dembitz of Lark shares what leaders are getting right and what they're getting wrong. Mark, welcome to the conversation. What does frontline empowerment actually look like in high-performing QSR brands?
What we see is that the brands that empower their frontline teams best actually focus on simplifying how daily operations are run. So instead of expecting store teams to navigate multiple systems, they actually bring together communication, workflows, and operational data and updates in one space. And so that really allows it to be easier for the frontline teams to access guidelines, complete operational tasks, and escalate issues when when something goes wrong. So, for instance, Zeus Coffee has used Lark to streamline how its really rapidly growing network of stores and how they coordinate with headquarters. So they have operational updates and store reporting and internal communications all together in one space connected. And this really allows the team to respond quickly to issues and to maintain consistent standards across all their locations. And just as importantly, a lot of the brands that do well here really treat the frontline teams not so much as an execution layer, but as the actual engine of the business. So when store teams that can flag issues, share their feedback, and resolve problems really quickly, we see organizations develop a much faster learning cycle, which then is essential for brands operating at scale.
Great answer, Mark. Thank you for that. Where do leaders most often find that frontline support is going wrong?
From what we see, Simon, this goes back to the frontline needing far more empowerment. And it comes down to mindset shift because retail and QSR environments tend to have really high staff turnover. Because of that, some organizations hesitate to invest deeply in developing and empowering their frontline. And so there's this perception that making such investments may be wasted since the frontline churns so quickly. But in reality, not making those investments actually widens the gap between the key players and the average players, because headquarters and frontline really become more distant. And when frontline teams lack tools and visibility or clarity to execute decisions effectively, well, even well-designed strategies struggle to translate into consistent operations at scale. So what we see, again, is when the organizations put in place those tools and systems that connect headquarters and frontline and really empower their frontliners to operate, to create, to innovate right there on the frontline, that creates far more loyalty. And then with people staying, then that actually validates the investments that they're making and improves their operations.
Very interesting. Now, Mark, if you could change one thing about how QSR leaders support frontline teams, what would it be that you would change?
I would really urge leaders to think of communication between headquarters and frontlines as a two-way street. Far too often today, it seems one way, where the headquarters actually makes decisions and tells the frontline how to execute what these decisions are. And so it's a one-way flow of information. This needs to change to two-way flows of information so that not only can headquarters push down decisions, but headquarters can actually learn really quickly in terms of what's happening on the front line. Because it is the frontliners who feel the pulse of the customers, who see shifts in what customer demand is on a day-to-day basis. And the faster that information can be reported back to headquarters, the better the decisions they can make, and then release those execution orders back to the front line. And this becomes really a symbiotic way of working together, which again then fosters better corporate culture. The frontline feels valued and empowered, and then that really adds the value to the organization.
Thank you very much, Mark. Now, if you could distill today's conversation for our viewers and our listeners into one key take-home message, what would that message be?
Frontline really matters. It's a massively growing part of the Southeast Asian workforce. It is in constant connection with the customers, and they really feel the pulse of what's going on a day-to-day basis. And that is absolutely critical in an industry that is as connected to people as QSR is. And the more we see the rise of AI, which is really key in driving operations across the board, the more we also need the frontline to have the time for that human touch, which really makes a key difference in how brands distinguish themselves and position themselves. So invest in your frontline, focus on them, give them the tools they need to innovate and solve problems on their own, and you will see returns in your business multiple fold.
Thank you very much for joining us today, Mark.
Thank you very much, Simon.
Once again, our guest was Mark Dembitz, General Manager APAC at Lark. For more news, please visit QSR Media Asia.